Godzilla, a giant radioactive monster that has terrorized the big screen for 70 years. The giant monster, depending on who you ask. But as impossible as giant creatures like Godzilla may be, the Earth has witnessed its own reptilian giants stomp across its lands, including the largest of them all, the dinosaurs. Even early in their history, back when they were small, sleek, and scurrying beneath the feet of older giants, dinosaurs were on their way to growing to gigantic sizes, some even outgrowing their peers as some of the largest predators of their time. One of the most notable, and most dubious, was one of the first large flesh eaters amongst the dinosaurs. One so large compared to its relatives, it was fittingly named Gojirasaurus. That's right, your eyes and ears do not deceive you. There is a dinosaur named Gojirasaurus that once stalked the Earth 212 million years ago, a time when the dinosaurs were just getting their start roaming the Earth. At 20 feet long, or 5 meters, Gojirasaurus certainly earns its name, and would have been one of the largest dinosaurian carnivores of the Triassic. And what's even more astounding is that its known fossils represent an animal that wasn't even fully grown yet. That being said, certainty might be a stretch. In fact, there's a lot uncertain about Gojirasaurus, right down to the fossils that represent it. Despite how tremendous a find Gojirasaurus is, it's a creature known from only a handful of fossils, with its holotype, or establishing specimens, containing bits and pieces of skeletal material. Being known from fragmentary material leaves a lot of questions. What did Gojirasaurus look like? How did it live? What role did it occupy in this ancient ecosystem? We're fortunate then that Gojirasaurus' closest relative is one of the most well-sampled animals in the fossil record, Coelophysis. Coelophysis is currently the most famous Triassic dinosaur for a very good reason, with over 1,000 fossil specimens having been recovered from the American Southwest, especially Arizona and New Mexico. From this multitude of fossils, we've been able to learn about Coelophysis in intricate detail, and by extension those of its relatives, like Gojirasaurus, belonging to the same family called the Coelophysids. Coelophysids were the blueprint of the future. Swift, slender, and often small predators, these were some of the most advanced dinosaurs of their day, with traits future generations of dinosaurs would build upon down the line. Standing on 2 legs with an erect gait supported by specialized hips and long tails for balance, preceded by long, grasping arms, S-shaped necks supported by bird-like furcula or wishbones, and most especially, hollow bones. Hollow bones were a key adaptation in permitting large body sizes in dinosaurs thanks to their pneumatized or air sac-filled structure, distributing and better supporting the weight of the body, while making the skeleton itself lighter, allowing different groups of dinosaurs to achieve gigantic proportions throughout the million years of their reign, even as far back as their earliest days in the Triassic. While your favorite documentary or library book might tell you the Triassic was a time when dinosaurs were at their smallest, that's not quite true. In fact, it's a massive oversimplification. Although dinosaurs started small, and often were small during the Triassic, several were already reaching gigantic proportions by the end of the time period. Notably, many of the long-necked browsers like Plateosaurus and Lesimsaurus, which were already reaching sizes close to that of elephants. Even some of the earliest carnivorous dinosaurs like Herrerasaurus were able to reach 4.5 to 6 meters, or 15 to 20 feet in length, with Gojirasaurus itself reaching similar proportions. With this evidence in mind, paleontologists are able to piece together what Gojirasaurus might have been like and what it means, thanks to the method known as phylogenetics, where scientists are able to both analyze related organisms based on their shared traits, as well as reconstruct extinct ones thanks to these shared traits. From here, a picture is painted of a tall, streamlined predator, one significantly more robust than its slender kin, distinguishing itself with taller vertebrae and more robust leg bones than those of the slender Coelophysis. And thanks to recent studies showcasing feathers across different groups of dinosaurs, a dinosaur like Gojirasaurus would have had feathers too, with studies suggesting that feathers are an ancestral trait to all dinosaurs, with these different, unrelated groups of dinosaurs pointing towards a feathered common ancestor. And if Gojirasaurus was one of these Coelophysids, it took the early theropod blueprint one step further by adopting the great size future generations of theropods would grow into by the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. But there's more to it. A study conducted in 2016 examined the growth patterns of various theropod dinosaurs, particularly those of Coelophysids, finding that this group of early theropods had surprisingly variable growth, a trait that was lost in later types of dinosaurs, but one adopted by Coelophysids in order to cope with various harsh climatic conditions of the late Triassic. And with this ability, it gave this group of dinosaurs a significant advantage over other reptiles by allowing them to adapt more rapidly to environmental changes, and potentially one of the many reasons why Gojirasaurus was able to grow to its astonishing size. However, the if is big on whether or not Gojirasaurus was a Coelophysid, or even a dinosaur at all. The fragmentary material of Gojirasaurus has caused a bit of a stir since its discovery, with some suggesting it's an exceptionally large Coelophysis, while others have tackled this dubiousness in an even farther direction, with some paleontologists even suggesting that Gojirasaurus was not a dinosaur at all, but instead its remains represent an already known type of reptile called a Shuvosaurus, which is not a dinosaur, but an ancient relative of crocodiles. It certainly wouldn't be the first time this has happened either, even with the well-known Coelophysis, with several early archosaurs being mistaken for Coelophysis. A mistake often made due to how basal or primitive early dinosaurs like Gojirasaurus and Coelophysis were. Dinosaurs, including birds, are part of a larger group of reptiles called the archosaurs, sharing a common ancestor with pterosaurs and crocodilians, just to name a few, before splitting off into their own distinct lineage over 240 million years ago, with early theropods like Coelophysids appearing in the fossil record 228 million years ago, and as a result of being so basal on their family tree, still bear many similarities to early forms of reptiles, and vice versa for many of their other more primitive archosaur cousins from the time, with many early relatives of crocs adopting vaguely dinosaur-like forms in their shared environments. That being said, although the fossil material is limited, Gojirasaurus has been found to showcase distinct Coelophysid traits, and despite its dubious status, has continued to persist in literature with the treatment of validity, including studies as recent as 2019 and 2020. And with this status in mind, it shapes not only Gojirasaurus as an animal, but its place in the ecosystem it once lived in. While you might think the stomping grounds of Gojirasaurus would have been the coasts of ancient Japan, it made its home in Triassic New Mexico instead, when the American Southwest was a much wetter, swampier place, the desert canyons and arid landscapes having once been humid swamps and bogs, filled with evergreens and redwood-like trees. A time before the continent had split apart, when they were all still one massive supercontinent called Pangaea. Here, Gojirasaurus was a giant monster, especially compared to the other dinosaurs that lived in its environment. But it's important to remember that as large as some of these early dinosaurs could get, they were still the new kids on the block, and the Triassic was still a world dominated by other larger reptiles. Just like their namesake, Gojirasaurus shared its world with other giant creatures. One of the largest predators that once lived here was the gigantic, 16 to 20 foot long Postosuchus, a distant relative of modern crocodilians, but one still adapted for life on land, that walked on two legs and had large T-Rex-like jaws. Between Gojirasaurus and Postosuchus, these were the largest land predators in their respective regions, and no doubt would have come across each other's paths from time to time. Would a Gojirasaurus even dare challenge a Postosuchus? Unfortunately, this is one matchup our Godzilla wouldn't win. Postosuchus still had size and power on its side, with a stockier, heavily built body and large bone-crushing jaws. Jaws that particularly had a taste for dinosaur. That being said, like all good Godzilla fights, sometimes a team-up is necessary, with bone beds of Coelophysis at least indicating that these types of dinosaurs were potentially social animals. And being a close relative, Gojirasaurus may have operated in the same way. One Gojirasaurus Postosuchus could handle, but two, or three, or a whole mob of giant swift-footed Gojirasaurs, and Postosuchus might have just been in trouble. One way or another, the lineage of Gojirasaurus would inevitably win over creatures like Postosuchus, outlasting the ancient archosaurs as they went extinct at the beginning of the Jurassic, while the dinosaurs took their place as the new rulers of the Earth. While Gojirasaurus itself would go extinct by the end of the Triassic, the Coelophysids as a group would continue to persist into the Jurassic, with animals like Stegosaurus and Megapnosaurus clinging on for another 10 million years, before they too were replaced by newer, better adapted dinosaurs. Despite its namesake, Gojirasaurus is, ironically, one of the more obscure dinosaurs to the general public, having made very few appearances in pop culture outside of Dinosaur King. And yet, despite this obscurity, it's a creature that provides an intriguing angle into the evolution of dinosaurs. One so mysterious that it's given paleontologists a few more puzzles to piece together. Truly a giant from an ancient past. Dare I say, a kaiju.